Hello everybody. My name's Jonathan and I'm the CEO of Allye Energy. We're all about power to the people, democratizing and decentralizing energy so everyone can access cleaner, cheaper energy. Now, if we think about the grid, we have to start with a fundamental understanding that our grids are aging, but also they weren't built for the electric future that we otherwise need. We're increasing the amount of renewables on the grid. That creates imbalance, and the wind only blows when it blows, and the sun only shines when it shines. We're moving to a decentralized grid with local power generation, and we're going to use more electricity than we've ever used before. And that creates a real problem for the grid. Not only are we having to spend more money in terms of balancing, and the purple line is the amount of renewables in the system, it's actually leading to higher bills. And the bigger problem in the future is the volatility of the bills and the spread over seasonality that's going to create a huge problem for the end user. Because if the grid has to pay to upgrade, there's only one person that will pay for it. So as you saw in the video, our solution is to deliver connected smart batteries at the grid edge to provide collective flexibility. The grid is going to be, and is, the weakest at its edges. That's at the distribution point, but also then behind the meter. So we're building smart technology that will ultimately help save the planet, reduce bills whilst helping the grid to decarbonize. This is a 320 kilowatt-hour system targeted at the commercial and industrial market. It'll power a factory for a day. It'll power 50 houses for a day, or even this festival for a whole day, with clean, cheaper energy. So, what's the applications? Well, classic is smart arbitrage, to be able to store energy when it's cheap and use that energy, obviously, when it's more expensive. But it can also fulfill the role of a community battery, where effectively it sits and provides shared access to virtual energy storage that people can access at different times. As we roll out more infrastructure, like DC fast charging, the problem is the grid just can't deliver the power that's needed. So we can act as a buffer, providing a smaller pipe in and a bigger pipe out. But also our system is flexible. It's mobile. On a trailer, it weighs less than 3.5 tons, which means it can be towed by a regular vehicle. That has a real interesting use case, which is replacing the diesel genset that are used in their millions around the world to decarbonize, reduce emissions, and reduce impact and noise. So what makes us different? Well, our difference comes with our technology, both the hardware and the software. We are a software-enabled hardware business. We repurpose electric vehicle battery packs. These come from prematurely written off vehicles, so they're almost new batteries, but we have independent control. And our system is the world's first mixed lithium-ion battery chemistry system. And that provides many advantages, not only because we are cheaper, but also by repurposing packs, our systems are 60% lower in terms of their embedded CO2 emissions. So over time, by 2030, we'll save 17 megatons of CO2 and 173,000 tons by repurposing those packs. So how does it work? Well, it's like energy storage as a service. It's a bit like a mobile phone contract. So just like you have 10 gigabytes of data for your mobile phone, this works exactly the same way. You'll pay for a certain amount of kilowatt hours every single month as part of your allowance. You don't have to buy it. We reduce the upfront cost and change the unit economics of what it means for energy storage. We maintain asset and control, so the consumer pays by kilowatt hour, and they save 50% on their energy bills. And then the grid also pays per kilowatt hour as we provide flexible capacity to help with those balancing costs that you saw at the chart at the very beginning. That helps shave off demand off the grid and significantly save billions in grid and infrastructure costs. So this market is growing. BNFES says it's the energy storage decade. We're going to see a rise, massive rise in installed capacity, but also in terms of the market size that we're going to face. So we've run successful pilots with some of the largest energy companies, the UK, one of the UK's largest supermarkets, and we have pre-sales agreements signed. And we are a team that's dedicated and committed to helping the planet and driving a real impact. In just 7 months, we started this business in March of this year. We've gone from 3 co-founders to a team of 11. We've built and engineered a full system, delivered 2 of them, and built a load of, run some successful trials to create real impact. So we hope you can join us on our journey to be an ally for the grid, the people, and the planet. Thank you.
Fantastic pitch, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Wow, what a brilliant, brilliant solution. Would you mind just telling us a bit around, talking a bit around IP and sort of what makes Allye defensible?
Sure,
please?
there's three things. The first starts with the data. So we've actually built our own proprietary health diagnostic system for testing these battery packs. Because once they've gone through to the recyclers, you have to be able to access the battery management system and fully understand what that state of health is. But more importantly, you have to determine the remaining useful life. Because you can't repurpose a battery into a system like this without ultimately thinking about the unit economics, which is how long can that asset last. So that's the first part. And we feed that into our algorithm in the cloud, so the more packs we test and we build, the smarter that becomes. So there's a data network effects that we get effectively. The second is within the technology for the batteries and how we integrate them. So we have independent control, and therefore that allows us to do some really interesting things. So I talked about the mixed chemistry, and this being the world's first. What that means is batteries are not all made equal. Chemistries are very different, their application of how they work is very different, particularly in low loads, but also different environmental conditions. So we can use different packs at, say, different temperatures, but also at different loads. But it also means we can do some really interesting things to improve system efficiency. What that means is we can use one battery to pre-charge another. And we can effectively use the heat from all of the batteries to improve overall system efficiency. And that's what we've protected. And it all comes down to that hardware and the integration and how we control those packs. And then the third is about the software. It's about the intelligence of how we control the allocation of the energy storage, which means we can allocate some for the grid while allocating some to the end user. And because our system is fully bidirectional, but because it has 4 separate independent packs, it gives us full flexibility to manage that capacity to benefit the grid, the user, and create value for everybody.
Thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Jonathan. So who else is doing this? Who's your competition?
So there are lots and lots of battery energy storage startups that are all trying very different things. You have a lot of grid-scale energy storage that sits within the transmission system. You have a lot of energy storage that sits behind the meter in homes, for example. But the big problem with most of them is none of them talk to each other. And that's what we want to change, and that's what we talk about collective flexibility. It's about how do we make batteries have a collective intelligence? How do we make them work together so that they can provide more than just the power of one battery, but almost provide a superpower, a collective energy capacity? And ultimately, no one is even doing that yet, not even Tesla. And they have megapacks and they have home energy storage solutions, but none of them talk together. So there's plenty doing grid scale, there's plenty doing domestic. There's no one really doing commercial industrial. There's a few like Luna, like Moment, and a couple of others like Rimac and Tesla, but no one's really doing it with the way that we're doing at a significant cost advantage that's 2.5 times cheaper than anybody else and 60% lower embedded CO2 emissions from repurposing the battery packs.
And from an investor perspective, I think you've touched on a number of monetization opportunities,
Yep.
Commercial, industrial, retail. Are any of those a particular hot button for the investors or looking to become the majority of the revenue moving forward?
Yeah, I think there's 2 ways of thinking about it. You can always say, well, technology, what's your applications? But actually, our mission is to put a battery in every business, every factory, and every home. And ultimately, what that means is distributed energy storage at scale. And it's regardless of whether then it goes into a supermarket, whether it goes into a home, a flat, no matter where it is ultimately, it's about aggregating all of those assets into a collective to provide flexibility and save money. Of course, if you think about businesses, there is no price cap on energy for commercial and industrial users, only for the residential users. So they've been hit much, much harder than all of those in the room here today that have clearly already faced a significant upward pressure on our energy bills. So, of course, we want to help the manufacturing sector because we see that as fundamental. But equally, we want to help small businesses. Small businesses represent 98% of the UK's economy, and they're even more elsewhere in other parts of the world. So we really need to be focused on about how we drive systemic change that drives benefits for society, And energy is such a core component of that. We've seen it with inflation in the last 12 months of just how much energy drives inflation, and that has a much wider impact on society. So for us, this is a much bigger mission than just technology of batteries. This is about fundamental structural change of how we decentralize energy and really drive that benefit through in society that can help everybody.
You've grown so quickly already, and you've obviously got a massive mission to change the world. What do you think is going to, what are your biggest challenges that you're facing at the moment?
Well, yeah, beyond capital, and there only being 24 hours in a day, which is arguably the biggest challenge. There's obviously, like every investor, you view a business through lenses and a lens of risk. And of course, there's supply side risk, there's execution risk, some technological risk, obviously there's also some competition risk. Arguably one of them is the grid's very different in different parts of the world, and it's not as mature. Now of course as Brits we love to be able to comment about how bad we are relative to the world, but actually the UK is actually one of the leaders in terms of grid flexibility. National Grid ESO, which is the energy system operator, is heralded pretty much around the world as one of the most forward-thinking and those that are really trying to drive distributed energy resources and how they can fit into the grid. So one of the other challenges will be about how we integrate and we help the other grids in the world to help be as advanced as the UK and drive energy storage to make a positive difference.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan.